Good evening and welcome to the Top 25 Rundown presented by the Sportscast. Today is April 5th, 2023. If you haven't yet, please subscribe on all your channels, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch.tv, and Apple Podcasts. If you are on Apple Podcasts, please leave a rating and review. It'll help us out tremendously. You can listen to us on your smart speaker, play Sportscast. You can visit us on the sportscast.net. Also follow us on Twitter at the Sportscast1 and check out our app, the Sportscast, in the iOS App Store. Hello, my name is Alan West. Welcome to the Top 25 Rundown. We're going to do a recap on the NIT, the NCAA tournament for the men and also the women. Tonight we have Erwin Dudley, former player at the University of Alabama, 2002 SEC Player of the Year, 2019 SEC Legend, and 13 years overseas basketball player. How are we doing tonight, Erwin?
Doing great, man. Thank you for having me on again.
Pleasure is all mine. And I'm also joined tonight by Bob Alvis, high school sports commentator, public address announcer, host of the Sports Buffet, and multiple other jobs and activities. Bob, a pleasure as always. How are you, sir?
Pleasure is all mine. I hope you guys are doing well.
Absolutely. Before we jump into the men and women championships, why don't we jump on the NIT just because last time we were here, there were 3 people that picked NIT, and there was one person that picked North Texas, and well, I was that one person. So after the game, I sent all 3 of you a message, 3 against 1, but still a great game.
Hey, rub it in, rub it all in.
Well, Erwin, well, let's be honest, sir. If you had the chance for it, you would probably hit me up a little bit too, sir.
Hey, listen, hey, you get a chance to shine tonight because you picked the winning team. Like I said, I had to roll with the home team. I honestly thought they was gonna get it done. I really did.
Yeah, I respected that, and I figured UAB was going to win. But I mean, I appreciate the fight that North Texas has had all year and just how they played in that last game. Like you
Hmm.
said, since it was the 4th time they played, so you knew that you can win all 4 games, but it's pretty hard. So they did lose, but it still was a heck of a game. It was probably the
Hmm.
best game of the NIT, honestly. I mean, even though the score wasn't as close, you watched them both just go back and forth and fight. I mean, even though they were fouling at the end, you still, I mean, at least for me, I was still curious to see if UAB was going to come back because how they kept fighting all game,
Hmm.
they did not quit at all.
Yeah, I mean, when you come down to a championship game like that, I mean, there's no such thing as quitting. I mean, you leave it all out on the court every night. But championship game, you try to find some extra energy, extra effort, because that's just it's for everything. And like you said, it was a really good game. Um, the only bad part about it is UAB didn't get to win, but it's a good competitive game. Just like all the rest of the games. That was
Absolutely. Bob, what do you think about the game, sir?
I'm really interested more so to see how can North Texas and UAB springboard off this because the NIT winner normally has had some good
Yep.
fortune in the next season. So we'll have to see if that continues. It's going to be a challenge because I think when you win any championship, you have a target on your back. It doesn't matter if it's the big one that's played on a Monday night or if it's the NIT or CIT, whatever it is. If you win a championship, you have a target on your back, and we'll have to see how North Texas responds to that.
Yeah, 100% correct about that. I think also too, what it's gonna boil down to, how many seniors they got on the team, how many uh how many guys they get from the draft portal. I mean, from the portal, how many guys they get. What type of recruiting class they bring in as well. So, like you said, you hit it right on the head. Like most teams, with they normally have pretty good success after a championship or even making to a championship game.
Absolutely. Springboarding right off of that, let's hit the women's championship first, just because for that Final Four, my bracket got busted going into the championship game. But you know what? I wasn't upset about that. The only thing I was surprised about, South Carolina against Iowa. I got to think that truthfully, that was the game of the tournament right there because
Mhm.
the adversity that Iowa was able to overcome, and Caitlin Clark, how she in the fourth quarter literally put Iowa on her back and either scored or assisted on every point in the fourth quarter.
Mhm.
I mean, she literally willed them to that win. I mean, that's why I watched the championship. I didn't think that they were going to win the championship just because LSU, I couldn't really see them losing. I mean, I hoped Caitlin Clark would have a great game, but I mean, against LSU, with how Kim Mulkey is only in her second year, I mean, they only lost 2 games all year, and Iowa has lost 6 games, even though they won the Big Ten. I just, I didn't think that, unfortunately, Iowa was going to have enough weapons, and I'm not going to say that I was proved right, but that was still a really good game. But just in my opinion, it's kind of like when we talked about for 2014 when Ohio State beat Alabama, and then they had to play Oregon in the championship game.
Mhm.
That was I kind of felt like that for the championship game just after watching Iowa take South Carolina's best to be able to pull off probably the biggest upset in women's basketball Iowa history.
Yeah. Um. You know, to follow what you said, the South Carolina Iowa game. Um. South Carolina, you know, they lack 3-point shooting a lot this year. Like normally, like last year was, you know, it was a totally different team. And every year, you know, it's a different team. No team is the same. And, you know, the one thing that they definitely relied on was the inside presence. You know, it's still I rebound them, Iowa. But again, when you got players like Caitlin Clark multiple times, they're sagging off a player and just telling her to shoot the basketball. I mean, if she's doing that, packing the lane, and they're not making a shot, then guess what? You're going to continue to do that. And as a player, that will play with your mind because you have somebody basically like, you know, disrespecting you, saying, "Oh, you can't shoot," but then you trying to prove them wrong. And you know, in that situation, South Carolina, they wasn't able to make shots. But then going to the LSU game, you know, they had some inside and outside presence. But the most important thing, I think the most important thing was, I think the girl Jasmine, I think her name Jasmine, she had the big game. She had 20, I think 21 in the first half. They didn't expect her to be on fire. But I think that if she wasn't on fire, I think it would have been a much closer game. I think that Iowa might have. Iowa would definitely probably would have pulled. They would have pulled off the win. But with that being said, they weren't able to because again, she kept them in the game. They got a big lead, and then you know how it is with momentum. Caitlin Clark, she
Mhm.
did pretty much everything she could. The game was a very physical game. A lot of elbows thrown. It's one of the most physical games I've seen all year. You know, of course, a lot of people are on the referees about calls, but at the end of
Mhm.
the day, I mean, it's a championship game. You gotta let them play. I mean, they play some stuff you're gonna miss. That's part of being an official. But you know, some calls you're gonna make. It's just part of being an official. But overall, I think it was probably one of the best games I've seen in women's basketball in a long time for a championship game.
Definitely agree with that. And for Iowa, the big thing for them was for their inside game was Cesano, who was
Hmm.
the one who was main person for their rebounds. But yeah, like you're saying, Jasmine Carson, the championship game in the
Hmm.
first half when Angel Reese wasn't able to play in the first half, she was the one that, like you said, literally picked up and scored because in like the last 2 or 3 games she hadn't scored any points, but in this game it was her time to shine. And I mean, she made the most out of it. And it was, for me, I was driving around, but I was listening to the game, and it just, for women's basketball, I can definitely agree that it was one of the better championship games I've seen and listened to. And I mean, it just, you wanted more, but you knew that just with how the game was going to end, as much as you wanted more, you knew that either the players are going to foul out or the game was just going to end. But you definitely saw that every player there left it out on the court.
Well, and I think the sad thing is, no matter what about that LSU Iowa game, as good of a game as it was, and so on and so forth, nobody's talking about that. Everybody's talking about the Caitlin Clark, Angela Reese incident, and to me, that has been blown so high out of proportion at this point. It's taken away from the game. It's taken away from LSU, and honestly, it's taken away from Caitlin Clark as well. I mean, I mean, people do it all the time in men's basketball. I don't know if you want to call it trash talk or whatever you want to call it. But if this gets into a women's basketball, it's like it's, a crime against humanity. And I don't get that.
The only thing I would say about that is that I think the only difference I say is Caitlin Clark, she did it. She did it pretty much just, in the circle amongst her teammates or whatever like that, in the crowd, whatever. But my only thing was Reese when she did it, it was right in her face. I mean, that's an automatic. If they had time on the clock, of course, that's an automatic technical foul. But it just that's the only thing. That's the only problem I had about it. But in the grand scheme, it's a game. I mean, it was a competitive game. But like you said, I think people just blew it up and made it way bigger than what it was. And I mean, at the end of the day, both they trash talk or whatever, like they're just part of basketball. Period.
Yeah, I mean, when I did see about how when they asked Caitlin Clark about that on ESPN, you saw she wasn't even mad. She said, "Look, it's what happened in the game. I mean, I wasn't paying attention to it. I did it myself against South Carolina. I mean, she only had good things to say about Reese and just like, hey, they won. They deserve it. I mean, I did my trash talk. I mean, you could even say when against South Carolina, one time when there was a person who was supposed to guard a 3-point line, she literally just shook her off. She said, "Go ahead, take that shot if you want. I don't care. I'm not going to guard you." I mean, but it is blown out of proportion. That and also they kind of got upset about the first lady, how she had said that
Right.
both men and women need to be there. Both teams for the women need to be there. And what happened with that was Reese got mad. Reese doesn't want to go there. Reese says, "I don't want to go to the White House for that." Which, I mean, that's up to her. She can do whatever she wants. But I mean, I feel that if you get the chance to go, you should go. I mean, you can't make her go, but even Caitlin Clark said, "Yeah, there's no way we're going. That's only set up for the champion, not for the second place." Even though the White House is trying to backtrack that, she was just saying that to make knowledge of both the men and the women, or the both teams for the women that they made to the final, which I can understand and respect that. But I will go in there to the White House. I just couldn't see that happening just because if you're a champion, absolutely. If you're not, it just wouldn't be right. That's just my opinion, though.
Well, and I think it's even more so. It's kind of we've reached the point with what the first lady said and did and everything like that. Is I think we've reached the point to where we don't want to offend people. And it's not, to me, it's not about offending people as much as it is, one team won, one team didn't win. I mean, let's say you don't want to use the term lose. That's fine. But I mean, I think it's like you kind of hit on, Alan, when you invite both teams. I think it's almost like you're taking away credit from LSU. I mean, to me, LSU won the game. LSU deserves
Mhm.
everything they got. If we're going to invite, why not invite all 64 teams that made the tournament to the White House?
Yeah.
So go ahead, Erwin.
No, I mean, no, he's correct. I think it should be just the champion, nobody else. I mean, that's how it always changed. Like you reward a champion, not second place.
Yeah, no, and I mean, that's why I can understand why she was saying it more just to maybe say for both teams just to give them credit that they both made it to the championship, only because in some ways women's basketball doesn't always get as much coverage or people focus on it, even though the tournament's happening at the same time as the men's tournament. So I can understand why she did it, but I still wouldn't have done it. That's just me. I mean, that's why you see, like, for all pro sports, you'll see the champion when they have time. They'll come to the White House and they'll be there they'll get their picture and stand outside the Rose Garden and get their speech.
Hmm.
So, I mean, hey, when you win, you deserve it and go for it. But that's neither here nor there right now. Although LSU, and with what Kim Mulkey did in her second season, that's just incredible. For her to win her fourth title in her second school,
Yeah.
she's only the fourth person to be able to do that. And I mean that's awesome just because for her as a coach, she's not one that you would want to disappoint, I would think. And just watching how she is with her players, she always pushes them to be the best. And I mean, I'm happy for her. And honestly, I'm a little scared for the SEC a little bit, just seeing how, with her being the coach there, with her and Staley being the two coaches in the SEC, other than as long as Gino's coach, I'm going to be finding it a lot more difficult to see about anybody who's going to be one of the top maybe 5 or 6 teams that are going to be besides them for right now.
Hmm.
Is that fair to say?
I think it is. I think
Yeah,
it's very
I
fair to
agree
say.
with you.
Okay. Just because, I mean, I'm trying to make sure that what I'm saying is something that, unless it can be disproven, if it can be, go ahead and tell me so I can make sure I learn more about not only the sports but just the players and the coaches. So, but why don't we jump real quick over to the men's game? Because the men's Final Four, UConn did pull it off against San Diego State, and they had a fight in their game before against Miami, although they were able to pull away by halftime. San Diego State, though, that game that they played, that was a little bit closer.
Yeah, you could say that. I mean, they had a little bit of a fight too when they knocked off Florida Atlantic. And the interesting thing about this is, I think it's going to be a situation now to where you don't find uh, as many teams maybe doing the one and dones because with the NIL and everything like that, I don't know that you're going to find. I don't want to say bad teams, but I think and I heard this talked about, so I can't take credit for it. But I think you're going to have teams that are going to bring a lot of people back.
I've heard also the NBA is looking at trying to raise the age within the next few years, but even with that being said, I think for the NIL, some players are going to want to try to follow the NIL. You are still going to deal with the one and dones, but the NIL, I think, is going to make some players want to stay longer in college so they can make some more money and then go to the NBA and make even more money. But Erwin, is it safe to say that if this happened while you were a player, it would kind of just be more or less icing on the cake?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, I think about it, all the time. Like what if we had that, you know, when I was in school. I ain't gonna say how many years ago it was, but when I was in school. But yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, um, universities they bring in a lot of money, off of athletes and stuff. And it's always been a topic of discussion. Even before I got to college, when I got there, even after that, and people wanted some type of get paid some type of way, and so for the NCAA and for them to allow it to happen, and guys are able to make money and get paid to do stuff. Um, I mean, I think it's great. Um, I know some guys are gonna make decisions based off where they feel like they can get the most money. It's just like the quarterback that signed at Florida, and they let him out his and then his letter of intent, signed a
Mhm.
deal for like $13 million, and I'm like, wow, that's a lot for a kid that's coming out of high school that's not proven at all. Um, that's a lot of money, and so again, I think um, with women's basketball, I think there was a lot of, especially in college. I think a lot of those girls they'll make a lot more money there in college, especially if they're a household name, a big name. I think they'll make more money there
Yep.
in college versus going to the WNBA. And they won't. They'll make more money there. So I think some girls, some of the women, they're going to enjoy it a little bit more, and because especially if if they have a big name, they're going to enjoy it a little bit more, because they're getting paid more money. But the NIL, man, it opened up a lot of doors for a lot of people.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Although for women's basketball, even though you're talking about the WNBA, the thing about that is a lot of the women play overseas in countries like Turkey,
Oh yeah,
Russia, and a few other places
yes.
just because they'll get paid more in the off season. Then
Hmm.
they'll go back to the WNBA. Although I don't really think Russian basketball is going to be the same after the Brittany Griner incident. That
No, I don't think a lot of Americans be going there. Period. I think it'll take time for them to to get everything back in order. But I don't see, like you said, I don't see I don't see a lot of people going over there right now.
Well, and I mean, even if you've got the NIL working, why are you going to go somewhere else and play if you can, play in the United States
If you
and
can maximize it.
not have to leave? So I mean, I think, the NIL, I think is a bad. I think it's a very flawed system, but I think for some people it's working out. And if the name of the game is to prevent people from heading overseas or heading to the pros or whatever, then I think we have to still see. I don't think we can say it's totally worked yet because, I mean, being honest, a lot of people from a school like Florida Atlantic are probably not going to go directly from college to the NBA anyway. But I mean, then you've got people like Zach Edey at Purdue. I mean, I'm hearing it's not 100% he's gone. I mean, for those guys that could make a lot of money, but what about those guys that are a fringe first round pick and could be a second round pick?
Hmm.
You know, I mean, that's not second round contracts are not guaranteed. Plus, I'd rather play. I mean, if I had any athletic ability, I'd rather play college basketball than head to the G League.
Yeah.
And you're going to make more money in college basketball with the NIL than you are the G League.
that's true. I mean, the main reason why some people are doing the G League instead of the NIL is just because they want to get their foot in the door. I mean, it
Right.
doesn't mean that's going to be the best way for them too, but it's at least a way for them to get in there, get their foot in the door. I mean, because let's be honest, Matt McClung, he is now back in the G League and his team's playing in the finals. And the last night I think he had 35 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists, something like that.
Hmm.
Because you watched him win the slam dunk contest. They brought him up for the 76ers for that, but then they sent him back down just because, well, he was signed to a few 10-day contracts in the league, which that's good, but you knew that they wanted him to, I guess, to hone his skills in the G League right now, so that way later on he could jump up, which that's not a bad thing, but it's almost like Allen Iverson's favorite his practice speech, because you got NBA and then the G League just kind of feels like it's practice.
Well, the one guy I look at who I think could have benefited from the NIL, but didn't, and went, I believe, right to the G League, was Brandon Jennings. Brandon Jennings was coming out of Oak Hill, and I believe it was somebody around that time. It might not have been him, but somebody went right to the
Wasn't
G League
him.
to get that money.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Brandon Jennings. Brandon Jennings went.
He went
If
overseas.
memory
He went
serves,
over
he went
Italy.
overseas for a year.
He
I
played
think he
in
went
Italy.
like to Greece or something,
Okay.
No,
or
Italy.
Israel.
I think it was Italy.
Yeah, I
Well,
know he did that for a year or two, then went then so he could be draft eligible.
Yep.
but if he had had an NIL, he would have probably headed to college, from what I have understood, rather than having to go overseas. And that would have been very interesting to see Brandon Jennings in college basketball, even if it was only for a year.
True, but I mean you could say that for a lot of people though.
If there had been an NIL,
Yeah.
yeah,
Or
I
if
mean,
they had decided they wanted to go to college. I
but for
mean,
some people, there's no reason to go to college, because some people, college is not for them. And I'm hearing what
Yeah.
other people have said, but if you have an NIL, you can go to college for 1 year and make your money, then go to the pros, or even 2 years, make your money, and then go to the pros. I mean, I think long term, I think you benefit off of it than, just skipping right to the pros. And like I said, being a fringe pick.
fair enough. Real quick, let's jump in for San Diego State and UConn. I don't know how much of the game you guys were able to watch, but UConn basically they got the lead within the first 10 minutes and they never gave it up. They started out, I think San Diego State was up on them 12-3, and then UConn roared back, and I mean their defense just did the talking. And
Mm-hmm.
whenever they would need a key play, you would either see Sonogo, Hawkins, or Newton. They were the ones who usually would make it, although Caravan, when he hit that 1-3 in the first half, I mean that was huge. You just saw that even though they took San Diego State's first big shot, they said, okay, now it's our turn. And once they got the lead, San Diego State was never able to recover. They tried. Uh, in a different chat group I'm in, Erwin, I think you saw when I was watching the game. When I was looking there, I typed in there. I said the lowest it's going to get is 6 points.
Yep.
Now I was
Mhm.
wrong. They were able to get to 5 points, but still, the way that the game was, I knew it was not going to get any closer. As much as San Diego State wanted to get closer, the way UConn was playing defense and just how their players were making it to where San Diego State couldn't make a shot, it was going to be really difficult for them to even figure out a way to score. I mean, it was great watching, but just watching how every time San Diego State had the ball, how suffocating UConn's defense was, either when they would single or double team, or even when they did when they had full court press a little bit. And then I don't think they did 1-3-1 in this game. I think that was what Atlantic did in the game before against them. That seemed to work pretty well. But it just the way UConn's played all tournament has been with suffocating defense and timely shooting. That in Sonogo, he just he had an awesome tournament because every time when they would need something to happen, he was averaging almost a double double every game.
Mm-hmm. I watched UConn play Alabama early in the season, and they beat Alabama, but I didn't think that they would be champions this year. I know right after they played Alabama, they kind of went on a losing streak. They had some guys hurt and COVID
Mhm.
issues or something like that. But they got to turn around. But if you look at how they played in this tournament, they played some of the most dominant basketball that I've seen in a long time. I'm talking about on both ends of the court, on each level. They
Mhm.
scored, rebound, defended. They got some tall guys, no go. They got the other tall kid that coming off the bench, the freshman. Um, they played really, really well. I think San Diego State. I think they ran out of gas a little bit. Um, I think that the physical play of UConn and them having longer, even taller guys that were actually physical and could do things and score around the basket. I think that affected them, but also too, they had guys that were used to the physical play that they did on the perimeter, and that didn't bother them. And I think that was the biggest thing between the game. I think UConn was used to the physical play, and they was able to overmatch what San Diego State was doing. And I think they started off slow, but they was able to pull away and once they, like you said, once they got in the head or took the lead in the game, it was all she wrote. There was nothing else they could really do.
That and UConn was able to win every game by at least 15 points throughout this tournament, which that you gotta be pretty dominant to be able to do that in every game you play. I
Yeah.
mean, if you do it once or twice in a tournament, you're doing good. But for them to do it in every game that they played, I mean, my hat's off to I believe it's Dan Hurley who's the coach
Yep.
there.
Yep.
Hmm.
I mean, now after his father, who's now isn't the coach down in New Jersey anymore, but how he had been a heck of a coach in high school down there. Now to see one of his sons win a tournament and know his other son's going to be making a difference for Arizona State. I mean, that's a pretty good way for start for head coaching for two pretty good teams right now. So I mean, I'm looking forward to see how they do.
Hmm.
Bob, what do you think about that, real quick?
Well, since 2000, UConn has five teams have won the NCAA tournament and won each of their games by double digits. UConn becomes the fifth one, but yeah, I definitely think Danny Hurley's a good coach, and Bobby Hurley, I think, is a very good coach as well. He was a really good player. I mean, I think UConn. I don't want to say can be around for a while, but I think UConn can be contending for a while to where you can't sleep on the Huskies.
Absolutely. Hey, Erwin, I know you got to go in a second, but I thank you for coming on. And if we were going to try to see you on social media, what would be the best way to try to get a hold of you?
So on Facebook is Erwin Dudley, and Instagram is Erwin_Dudley 35. I think that's my handle. I knew it. I
And
never know what it is. Yeah, I was right. Erwin_Dudley 35.
that works. But I appreciate you being able to come on and talk with us about basketball, just give some insight. And yeah, no, I mean, we had some great games this week. And yes, thank you for indulging me in my one victory I'm probably going to have the rest of the year. So thank you for that. You know that you're always welcome to come back, and we're probably gonna have other stuff we're gonna talk about. And don't worry, I expect you to give me a hard time, okay? So
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, you already know it. You already
exactly.
know.
Hey, I for me, I may dish it out, but I can take it too. So you know what? I
Hey, you,
appreciate it.
hey, you gotta be able to take it if you dish it. You got to.
Exactly. That's why it's some of the most fun. I mean, that was why when the three of you said that North Texas is going to lose, I looked at all three of you. I said, okay, let's do this. But I mean, we got a great game for the NIT. We couldn't have really asked for much more. Although, if UAB won, I would have been happy to look all three of you in the eye and be like, "Hey guys, you know what? You were right. I was wrong. Next year we can see if I can change that around."
Oh yeah, most
But
definitely.
indeed, but hey, thank you again, sir. I hope you have a good rest of your night, and we'll definitely get you on again soon. And I know we got the NBA draft getting ready to come on, and also for recruiting, just like I think another time I want to try to get you and Jeremy on, just so I can get kind of me and Bob can get kind of insight for like the basketball recruiting, how that goes. Just because I know right now, I was gonna have Jeremy on, but he has some of his kids going for recruiting college visit
Hmm.
right now, so he wasn't able to make it. So I definitely like to try to get both of you on another time so that we could talk about that just to get a better idea. So that way, well, me and Bob were never lucky enough to be recruited for sports in college. I don't know if that's a bad thing, but I would definitely like to try to see about it from a different point of view so I could try to live through you and Jeremy, even though I know that there's you guys' skill level is a lot higher than mine is, and you know what? I'm okay with that.
Oh yeah, like you said, I'd love to do it, man. Just just let me know like always.
Absolutely, you can count on that. But hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you again, my friend.
All right, same to you all. Thank you.
Good
Have a
seeing
good
you,
one.
Erwin.
All right, same.
All righty. Well, Bob, I mean, hey, I was telling him if I had been wrong about that, you know, I would have come right up to you guys and admitted it. So you've seen me do that before.
You know, I would have given you a hard time. I wouldn't need any prompting.
Exactly. No, and that's why for me, I was ready just in case I would have gotten that hard time. But that was
Right.
why, I mean, those three games by themselves, I really feel like we did pretty well for three championship games to watch. I mean,
Sure.
you couldn't ask for a whole lot more just because, like I said, for the women's basketball, how my bracket got destroyed for the championship game. I was sad about that, but I wasn't upset just because I knew it was going to be a heck of a game no matter what.
Normally, you're lucky to get one good championship game, but to get three, yeah, that's definitely like Christmas in March and April.
Yes, sir. We definitely got lucky for that. Speaking of a few other sports, since I got you on here, I was taking a look in for men's ice hockey right now. You got the Frozen Four happening.
Hmm.
So that's tomorrow night where they have the semifinals. Then the championship is Saturday, I believe. So you have Minnesota and Boston on one side, and you have Michigan and Winnipeg on the other side. Who are you picking, sir?
I'm gonna go Quinnipiac without a doubt, just
Okay.
because I pick Quinnipiac every now and again. Wow, from Minnesota and Boston, I'm gonna go Boston just so it's not a Big Ten final, or all the Big Ten teams are gonna be out.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna pick Winnipeg, but I'm gonna pick Minnesota, and I think it's gonna be a slugfest. I think Minnesota's gonna win though. I think
Yeah,
Minnesota's
I
gonna
wouldn't be
win.
surprised. I think that's gonna be a really good game. And the thing about it too is the Frozen Four is normally a very, 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 very intense sporting event. So we'll see how that goes.
Exactly. What we'll do is we'll definitely talk about who the champion is next week, and we will see how that goes. Just because, well, even though we don't always talk about hockey in college, you definitely see some of the best games that happen, and
Sure.
I mean, it can be no joke. That's just taking a look, and So let's go ahead and start hitting some of let's hit women's lacrosse real quick for the top 25. I see we have Syracuse at number 1 with a 13-0 record. Northwestern's number 2 at 11-1. Denver's number 3 at 11-0. James Madison's number 4 at 11-1. North Carolina's number 5 at 9-2. Stony Brook's number 6 at 8-2. Boston College is number 7 with a record of 9-3. Notre Dame's number 8 with a record of 8-3. Florida's number 9 with a record of 8-3. Maryland's number 10 with a record of 10-3. Loyola Maryland's number 11 with the record of 9-2. Number 12 Virginia's got a record of 8-4. Number 13 Yale's got a record of 8-2. Number 14 Army's perfect at 11-0. Number 15 UMass is 11-1. Michigan's number 16 with a record of 9-5. Penn State's number 17 with a record of 10-3. Princeton's number 18 with a record of 4-4. Clemson's number 19 with a record of 10-4. Navy's number 20 with a record of 10-2. USC's number 21 with a record of 9-3. Pennsylvania's number 22 with a record of 5-4. Richmond's number 23 with a record of 10-2. Duke's number 24 with a record of 6-6. And UConn is number 25 with a record of 7-3. So from the looks of it, it looks like the Ivy League's only played a few games so far this year.
Yeah, a lot of lacrosse still left to be played, and it should be a good season heading down the stretch for a lot of those teams. Still, like I said, still a lot of lacrosse left to be played. So who knows where the rankings could look in a few weeks?
Absolutely, and for the men, right now we have Duke at number 1 with a record of 10-1. Notre Dame's number 2 with a record of 7-1. Virginia's number 3 with a record of 7-2. Cornell is number 4 with a record of 7-1. Johns Hopkins is 9-3 at number 5. Maryland 6-3 at number 6. North Carolina 7-3 at number 7. Georgetown's number 8 with a record of 5-3. Penn is number 9 with a record of 4-4. Penn State is number 10 with a record of 6-3. Rutgers is number 11 with a record of 7-3. Army West Point is number 12 with a record of 8-1. Loyola Maryland is number 13 with a record of 6-3. Ohio State's number 14 with a record of 5-5. Michigan's number 15 with a record of 5-4. Yale's number 16 with a record of 3-4. Denver's number 17 with a record of 4-4. Villanova's number 18 with a record of 8-2. UMass is number 19 with a record of 6-3. Lehigh is number 20 with a record of 6-3. Utah is number 21 with a record of 5-4. Jacksonville's number 22 with a record of 8-2. Bryant's number 23 with a record of 7-2. Princeton is number 24 with a record of 4-4. And Dartmouth is number 25 with a record of 6-2. And Bob, I know that this is early in the lacrosse season, but even still, just with how that's looking, we have going to have a great season on our hands. And I've got a feeling it's going to be back and forth to seeing who does really well and just how some of the rivalry games are going to come up, just how they're going to end up. Because when you're watching lacrosse, you know that every week it goes up and down depending on who wins or who loses, because not only are the rivalry games important, but also the conference games. You always see that teams rise to the occasions in a lot of the conference games.
Well, and if you look at your rankings, you've got a lot of teams that are in the same conference. So the chances of conference games being played are great. So, yeah, it definitely should be interesting.
Definitely looking forward to that. And also want to hit on the softball rankings. We have Oklahoma at, I didn't even realize that we've already had almost 40 softball games
Yep.
played for some teams. So we have Oklahoma at 33-1. We have Oklahoma State at number 2 at 32-2. We have UCLA at number 3 at 32-4. We have Clemson at number 4 at 36-1. We have Tennessee at number 5 at 29-3. We have number 6 Florida State with a 29-7 record. Stanford's number 7 with 28-6. Georgia's number 8 at 29-6. Arkansas is number 9 with a record of 27-9. Texas is number 10 with a record of 38-1. Washington is number 11, tied with LSU. They have a record of 26-8, while LSU is 31-6. Duke is number 13 with a record of 28-8. Alabama is number 14 with a record of 26-11. Kentucky's number 15 with a record of 21-9-1. Oregon is number 16 with a record of 22-11. Virginia Tech's number 17 with a record of 27-8. Florida's number 18 with a record of 26-9. Texas A&M is number 19 with a record of 22-13. Northwestern's number 20 with a record of 20-9. Arizona's number 21 with a record of 24-12. Baylor's number 22 with a record of 27-9. Auburn's number 23 with a record of 28-10. Utah's number 24 with a record of 22-7. And Wichita State rounds out the top 25 with a record of 30-7.
Yeah, it's like we've talked about many times. I've heard a lot of multi-conference teams too. So when those ACC schools match up, or when those Big Ten schools match up, or when those Pac-10 schools match up, it promises not only to be must-win games, but games that you can't throw away all of them. So yeah, must-win games to me, without a doubt, because you want to see how good can I do against the high-level competition.
That, and just looking through this, I see Northwestern is the lowest wins with 20, whereas Clemson has the most wins right now at 36. And I mean, just the parity with that within the top 25.
Right.
I mean, we're not even at the super regionals yet, and just seeing how that is, and just waiting till we got the conference tournaments coming up in a month, or in about a month and a half, 2 months.
Right.
Yeah, it's gonna be a bloodbath to me. That's why I always enjoy seeing who can make it to the super regionals, and then watching when they make it to the women's college world series, just because when they get there, it truly, this double elimination, it's always great to watch, because you see who truly makes it, and who, if they don't make it, you see the fight that they put in just to even try to make it to the next day.
Yeah.
Just because I know that softball and baseball are two of the college sports that are near and dear to your heart, besides volleyball. But we missed the volleyball season right now, so we can definitely hit on that next year.
Yep.
Last thing I wanted to make sure that we did talk about also is for baseball, we got the top 25 rankings for baseball. Right now we have LSU number 1 with a record of 24-4. Wake Forest is number 2 with a record of 26-3. Florida's number 3 with a record of 24-5. Vanderbilt's number 4 with a record of 23-5. Arkansas's number 5 with a record of 23-5. South Carolina's number 6 with a record of 26-3. Virginia's number 7 with a record of 24-4. Stanford's number 8 with a record of 18-7. Boston College number 9 with a record of 20-6. Kentucky's number 10 with a record of 25-3. Tennessee's number 11 with a record of 21-8. East Carolina's number 12 with a record of 20-8. North Carolina's number 13 with a record of 20-8. Campbell's number 14 with a record of 22-4. Florida Gulf Coast is number 15 with a record of 23-5. Oklahoma State's number 16 with a record of 22-7. Coastal Carolina's number 17 with a record of 18-7. Louisville's number 18 with a record of 21-6. UConn's number 19 with a record of 20-6. Miami's number 20 with a record of 19-9. Texas is number 21 with a record of 20-9. Texas Tech is number 22 with a record of 20-9. UCLA is number 23 with a record of 16-8. West Virginia is number 24 with a record of 21-7. And Oregon rounds out the top 25 with a record of 18-7. And Bob, just looking through all these, you can definitely see that the SEC and the ACC and a little bit the Pac-12 are even all very there are a lot of teams in there from those different conferences. I guess that's what to put it.
Yeah, it should be super exciting. I mean, a lot of people don't pay as much attention to some of the sports happening in spring because it's a quote unquote slow time. But I'll tell you what, those athletes, they don't know they're not supposed to be playing hard. They don't know that, any of that stuff. They're ready to go.
I mean, as we're kind of I guess closing out basketball a little bit, what do you think was the thing that you'll remember the most from the different tourneys you got to watch, and just what was some of your highlights that you saw?
Fairleigh Dickinson beating Purdue. I mean, it's only happened twice in the history of college basketball. So that's got to be one. The San Diego State buzzer beater. You don't see buzzer beaters all the time at the Final Four. Heck, you don't even see buzzer beaters in the tournament. Heck, you don't even see buzzer beaters in regular games all the time. So that one stands out to me as well. I mean, so much to stand out. I can only pick two or three, but I don't feel like I would criticize anybody else for what they picked.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely hit some big ones. I would say Miami making it to the Final Four, so Larinaga made it to the Final Four with two schools is definitely something that people aren't going to forget. And also, I'll jump over to women's basketball for a second. In South Carolina, how they had the perfect season to the national semifinal, just with how that was, and how Caitlin Clark, and just watching how her and Angel Reese got to have a great championship game, but just watch how Caitlin Clark at times willed Iowa to win. Just watching how that was something that was huge. And then just watching the back and forth for the NIT, I thought that was something else that was pretty important, and just seemed to make a pretty big difference. So, Bob, if we were going to try to find you outside of here, how would we do so? I mean, I know it would be a mistake, but if we were going to try to find you outside of here, how would we do it?
Well, you don't have to hire a private investigator, so that's a good thing. You can go to the Sports Buffet on Twitter. The Sports Buffet on YouTube is updated. I'm trying to update it more so. And the Sports Buffet podcast on Facebook is the best three ways.
Very nice. You can see me on Instagram at Alan F. West, or I'm sorry, Alan.West.46. I do have my Twitter I'm going to post Sunday on, which is Alan F. West. I do have Facebook, which is Alan.West.46. And then you can also go on the Sportscast. Our website is thesportscast.net, or you can follow us on Twitter at the Sportscast1. We do have a Sportscast app in the iOS App Store. We have the Jersey Boys coming on tomorrow night. But Bob, I think that about cleans up everything for today, unless there's something else you can think of, sir.
Always fun to be with you, Alan, anytime.
Pleasure is truly mine. This has been the Top 25 Rundown on the Sportscast. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next week.